Welcome to the Truth to Power for You post-mortem on the 2024 election. I'm your host, Brian Kasher. Democrats have to look well beyond Joe Biden's assertion that misogyny was the cause of the brutal loss in every swing state, while the majority of voters voted against Democratic leadership of the United States of America. The gender of Kamala Harris is simply a comfortable excuse that avoids the harsh reality of the party's clear swing to the right in 2024 that just pushed people away. The misogyny claim allows Democrat leadership to continue the same failed policy direction while excusing the party elite from their ownership of the unexpected and tragic loss of the White House again in 24. Abortion simply didn't carry the day, folks. It simply didn't carry the day. I am joined in our discussion today by long-term friend of the program and resident funkologist, Mr. Jabril Huff. Mr. Huff is a sought-after guest on media like CNN, MSNBC, CBN, as well as local media outlets. Jabril is a practicing Muslim who served as the spokesperson for the Islamic Center of Charlotte for many years. Jabril also makes the rounds in political circles and is known widely for his speaking truth to power even when the political classes can't handle the truth. Yep, Jabril's good for that. We also have a special segment on Martin Luther King Jr.'s Letter from a Birmingham Jail by Reverend Mark Thompson, and a very special song from the campaign trail you'll hear about as we get deeper into the program. All right, let's let the post-mortem begin. Jabril, you got anything you'd like to?
Well, I think what we're doing today is a very timely discussion, but it's also a discussion that we could have had 4 years ago, 8 years ago, and most likely 4 years from now or 3 years from now, because the issues that we're speaking of are issues that we have every 4 years. It seems like these things are very relevant. It seems like the Democratic institution has not learned their lesson yet. We have hopes that they will. I don't have a lot of faith, but we have hopes. And along with that, we also saw the study who just came out a few days ago that shows that's shown that if the elections were held today or yesterday, the results would have remained the same.
Wow.
So what does that say? As bad as Donald Trump is, he would still have won. He would still win today because the product that the Democrats pushed out was one that was unpopular. It didn't speak to the issues. It was one that most of everyday Americans could not identify with. So many issues that we'll dive deeper into in this show, but it just goes to show that until the party changes, the results will remain the same.
Absolutely. You know, there was a joke going around during the election. You know, you're not part of the solution. You're probably running for president.
Yeah.
And I think one of the main reasons that a lot of people were turned off by the Democratic Party in this election has to do with males identifying as females in sports. I was out in the streets with hundreds of thousands of people here in North Carolina. We fought for marriage equality. We fought for bathroom rights. Next thing we found out was after we secured those rights, that now males who either surgically remove their genitals or take some kind of medication can consider themselves females and take away trophies from females. I think I'll stop there and just say I think that issue is really one that pushed a lot of people to vote against Democrats.
Yeah, I think that's definitely an issue that doesn't, it's not a populist issue. It's not an issue that speaks to the masses of the people. It's a very fringe issue that the Democrats spend a lot of time in their rally speaking towards. It's an issue that most people cannot identify with, and the average American, if you ask them straight up without any peer pressure, how do you feel about men or boys playing on a girl's team or vice versa? they'll say that boys should be playing with boys and girls should be playing with girls. And for a man or a young man to play in a girl's sport, there's also a physical advantage here, because regardless of what you manipulate with on your body, you're still a male, and God has blessed males with certain physical advantages, and females have their own advantages. But physically, males are in a stronger position when it comes to sports. But I think most people in the LGBT community, the masses, just want to live their life. They want to be safe. They want to go to work. They want to live life just like you and I. They do not want to push their agenda.
And I would say that the masses
else.
support that. I really do feel the masses of the United States support that.
The problem is there's those with the agenda behind it, not the everyday person who's just trying to live their life the best they can. There's an agenda behind that.
The professional, for-profit, paid lobbyists.
Yes, those people, average, everyday American, it says it's too much. Hold up.
I agree. Next issue on the list is woke or wokeism. I personally feel Democrats lost the woke issue. Woke was birthed out of way back in the day being alert to oppression and racism, right? The right has embraced a new definition of woke, which is anything left of, say, center right, okay? So to me, I am aware of racism. I am aware of these things, and I try to work against them, okay? But the new woke is, if I say I'm woke, under the new woke definition, that's supposed to mean I support pedophiles and things like that, which I don't. Yeah. I'm a subscriber to the belief that those who control language control thought. And I think it shows how Democrats themselves could not communicate at the level that the Republicans could. Democrats have a hard time communicating their message, and losing the war on woke, I think, just as an exclamation point.
The term woke, just like terms like liberal, conservative, these terms have been co-opted and corrupted to mean anything other than what they originally were meant for. I'm old school. I always used to say don't sleep, which was pretty much the same thing as being awake or woke. Be conscious that's around you. Be principled and be against any form of isms, whether it's Zionism, whether it's racism, whether it's any form of supremacy, and work for equality of people. But again, the term woke has been co-opted, and it seems like it's been carried. The banner of woke has been carried by fringe elements that majority of the people who would say they're woke or conscious are looking at you and it's like, I don't agree with that. Why are you pushing that? Why are you not working for a greater idea here? And so that's the pushback you're getting, and some people want to step away from the term woke. Is from both sides. It's not just the people on the right making fun of it.
That's a good point.
It's the people on the other side saying, okay, you're not really, I'm not a really part of that.
Gotcha. Yeah, when we see people like Bill Maher, jumping on the conservative definition of woke, it speaks for it. I just feel we lost the war on language.
Well, yeah, and I'll say this. I really don't care for Bill Maher. I will say this in his defense, that he does come off as a critical thinker, and I think that's what's lost on a lot of people. You have to be critical thinkers and question whether it's authority, question the agenda that's being played.
Right on.
Being able to be critical thinkers, that's the kind of people that we want, and that's the kind of people who make change. Critical thinkers, not the kind of people who just go along with whatever agenda you're pushing, whether it may appeal to 1.5% of the masses. That's not encourage people to change.
All right. So that about does it for wokeism. The next one is more something that party people would probably relate to more than the average voter out there. But the Democrats in this case opted not to have a primary. I think they paid a harsh penalty for not doing that. Primaries are our form of real democracy. It's where we decide who is going to be our candidate between the two parties. And by not having a primary, all the time spent in the trenches, going to the ice cream shop, petting the dogs, kissing the babies, didn't happen. Not only did Kamala Harris make a campaign with really not much outreach at all at the grassroots level, had they had an actual primary, we don't know if Kamala Harris would have been the nominee, but we do know that millions of American voters would have gone to the ballot, and that would have inspired people to come back when it's time to vote. The no primary penalty, I think, from a party perspective, completely sank the 2024 campaign.
I don't see how you can run a campaign on claiming to save democracy when all you have done during the past two presidential elections especially is taking democracy away from the people. Go back to when Bernie was in the lead in the last real presidential primary. What did they do? Biden went down to Columbia.
Yep.
He made a backroom deal. He said, you need to get the votes together. We need to back. And here is Biden, who was maybe, 5 or 6 in the race?
He wasn't even on the charts.
He wasn't even. If it was barely on the charts, 5, 6, or 7, most popular. And Kamala was the first one to drop out. After that backroom deal, you got Biden and Kamala out of that, Biden was nobody's third or fourth favorite, if you're going to be honest. And Kamala was the first one to fall out. So you push that on the Democratic people who are voting Democrats. So you're already taking the democracy away. This time, everybody knew the state of Joe Biden. You knew it last time. I mean, he was barely holding on during the last debates.
I don't know. I think people were shocked when he came out and couldn't complete a sentence.
Well, some
people who weren't paying attention.
Some people were, but the last time he was barely holding on. He could put a sentence together last
Yeah.
debate, but he was still like, okay, you never know what's going to come out of his mouth. This time, he was already gone. I think it was planned. I think they waited to the very last minute where they had to put Kamala out there. But I think it was planned. They wanted her to be president because she was an empty suit and the people behind her would be in full control.
I think there's something to that. I think that, I'll say it again, Kamala was a patsy for those who are really running the show behind the scenes for the two faces of the one political system we have in the United States.
Just as Biden was too. So we're not just picking on Kamala here. I think Biden was a patsy also.
I'll tell you, he was a sharp senator. I mean, he was...
We're talking about 50 years ago.
Okay. I'm not going into ageism, but you got a point there, brother.
I'm just saying.
All right.
None of us are the men we used to be, right?
That's right. That's right. All right. Here's Reverend Mark Thompson.
There are 3 principles: educate, organize, and mobilize. If you aren't doing those 3 things, you really aren't doing anything at all. And that's absolutely critical at this hour with all of the things taking place, especially with a crazy man like Trump in the White House. And so we have to be very, very disciplined. Those of us who know and respect Reverend Barber see Reverend Barber for what he is. But, Reverend Barber and I are very close and are brothers in Christ, but all he is, all I am, are disciples of Dr. King. This is not rocket science. And if we read and study and understand, we do just what Dr. King said. And those are the 4 steps in a letter from the Birmingham Jail. Anybody can do them. We don't need to wait on some big personality to do it for us. Wherever you are in your own locale, you can do that. And so those 4 steps are collection of the evidence of injustice, document, study, make a record of the injustice that is being perpetrated against you and your community, be it local or global. The second is once you collect the evidence of that injustice, you go to those committing that injustice. In step 2, and you negotiate. You have demands. This is what we want. This is what we want to change. Whether we want to change, we're here at the People's Climate March, whether we want to change environmental injustice, environmental racism, we go to the corporations that are doing the fracking. We go to the sanitation companies and the trash transfer stations that are proliferated in communities of color and poor community. Say, these are our demands. This must change. And then in that negotiation, if they don't agree and they don't change, step number 3 is what Dr. King calls spiritual purification. And that's not so much religious based, it is literally more spiritually based. That's when you prepare to suffer. That is, not just march for marching's sake, but as Reverend Barber and others have done, and as Dr. King did himself, prepare yourself to commit civil disobedience. Prepare, if necessary, to go to jail or to risk physical harm for what is right. And then step 4, after you've made that preparation in step 3, step 4 is the direct action itself. Sit in, demonstrate, boycott. I don't think we boycott enough. We talk about what corporate America does to us. Well, we can't just talk about it. If we want to hit corporate America, we need to organize, again, educate, organize, and mobilize to take these corporations out. And as consumers, we can do that with our dollars. This is all we need to do. And once we do those things, sooner or later, our victory is certain.
Mark shared this lesson of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s backstage at the People's Climate March. Thank you so much, Mark. The message lives on. You know, Mark Thompson was the president of the D.C. chapter of the NAACP and has received many awards, Lifetime Achievement Awards, for his courageous journalism for the people. Mark is just wonderful, and we suggest you follow him and look him up. Let's get back to the post-mortem. This time, it seemed like the Democratic Party left our core issues off the table. I didn't hear much, if any, discussion about the Paris Climate Accords. Our environmental movement was a massive motivator under Obama and coming forward. This last time, it was nothing, okay? Environment, I'm not hearing much. Strong labor. No, we didn't have anything about improving the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board. We didn't hear anything about increasing minimum wage, which is typically that's bread and butter Democratic territory. Well, where was it on this campaign?
The major political parties here are, at the end of the day, after you take the dressing off, are not that far apart. What we have is pretty much neocons and neolibs. And then you have Trump, who's an entity of his own, who is unprincipled, who makes decisions pretty much based on how much money he's going to make or his friend's going to make. So I don't really put him in either box. He's an exception to the rule.
This is a good segue into our next issue, which is the Democratic shift to the right. I would say Democrats illustrated this visible shift to the right by not using our core issues on the campaign trail, and then also accepting the endorsements of 99 CEOs and Dick Cheney. Dick Cheney, I was in D.C. while Dick Cheney was the VP. Dick Cheney, Democrats feared him, and I don't mean worship ways. They were afraid of this guy. He was behind war. They say he was running the Bush White House. Anything going on, he was the mastermind behind it. For Kamala Harris to accept that endorsement clearly shows, I think, one, she was probably consulting with him during her vice presidency. She didn't have Joe Biden to turn to.
Right.
How can you present true Democratic bread and butter issues like the environment, higher wages, and a strong labor movement? How can you support that on the campaign trail while you're asking for the endorsement of 99 CEOs and Dick Cheney who are against higher minimum wages, against most things for the environmental movement? They're against regulation in general. How am I as a Democrat supposed to see Kamala Harris with 99 CEOs and Dick Cheney representing my values, which are core Democratic values? I don't get it.
Well, the DNC has constantly, over the past maybe 12 years or so, pushed out fringe issues that make them seem far left, whether it's something concerning LGBT, whether it's abortion, whether it's men and women's sports. They'll push these issues out, especially on the campaign, to touch the heartstrings of the fringe and make them seem on the left, when in actuality, they're not pushing populist issues as far as, wages and education, healthcare, things that we all can identify with. They're not pushing these things. That's why they're losing. And
Right.
and when Dr. Evil gives you the kiss of death, nobody wants a Dick Cheney in their life.
I can guarantee you, no Democrat in the 90s, the presidential nominee of the Democratic Party would accept. Okay, he could nominate. She accepted and went out there on the campaign trail glowing about Dick Cheney.
20 years ago, you would not imagine this.
Ever. It's just not possible.
When George Bush and Dick Cheney and all them, they are the neocon movement. That's why I say the Democrats of today in leadership are neo-libs, which is just, it's like the twin brother to a neocon.
It's exactly right. And
when it comes to civil liberties, they're not for it. When it comes to war, they're for it. The things that we value as Americans and what we're supposed to be about, peace, civil liberties,
I'll
nowhere
give you
to be
one.
found.
One of the first questions that caught my eye when Kamala was being first interviewed was, what would you do if someone broke in your house and threatened you? Or essentially, that was the question. And Kamala came back and said, "Oh, I'm putting his ass down," something like that. He's going down. I mean, she didn't hesitate. Yeah. It was at that moment I realized we're not dealing with a traditional Democrat here. Mm-hmm. This is somebody who just cut off one of the major issues Democrats have worked on as long as I've been alive, and that's control of guns, not taking them away.
Well, all I'm saying is, don't come to the house.
Yeah.
Don't come to my house playing that either.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Because I'm going to be in control of my gun.
That's right. That's right. That's right. But to hear it on the campaign trail was a shock. She could have had a much softer response to something.
Well, even Biden said buy a shotgun. And that is probably the best home protection because you can spray.
Right on. Next one up, number 5. The Democrats' perpetual investigative mode, right? I elect Congress people to write legislation. That's their job. Okay, I vote for president to manage the executive branch. I vote to Congress to write legislation. But in the last several years, all I remember is investigation after investigation after investigation, and it gets old. And the fact is, after 6 years of investigations, Donald Trump did get some convictions, but doesn't seem to have much impact at all. All that energy to get a few state convictions that the penalty was no penalty, not even a $25 fine.
What did all that investigation get us besides spending a lot of millions and millions of tax dollars? And number 2, do we really want to become the nations that we detest or criticize, especially those nations, some of them in the Middle East that we like to point our finger at and criticize, that when certain groups are in power, they break the rule of law, or they go over the board trying to put the other person in prison. Do we want to become like that? Do we really want to become like that? And if we do, look, Trump is in power right now, so be careful what you do when you hold power, because when it's not in your hands, the next person can abuse it as well. So just, be careful.
Most people before they go to be in Congress go to chef school. You know why? So they can learn how to cook the books. I mean, it's just, and that's bipartisan, by the way.
Yeah, it's definitely bipartisan.
Next one up, keeping it moving. Absent on podcast platforms, Donald Trump went out. He did Theo Vaughn. He did Joe Rogan and maybe others. I don't know. And he got millions of views by people. Rogan endorsed Bernie, so he's not a conservative ideologue like people think he is. Kamala Harris not going on podcasts to me seems like a bit of elitism, being too good for what's going on in the country, and illustrates the Democratic Party's, once again, absence of ability to communicate and like know what's going on in America.
Well, one thing, as you saw in the campaign, she really couldn't answer questions. At the best, she could laugh. She got a cute giggle, but she really couldn't answer questions. And Donald Trump, regardless if he's lying, you don't like what he says, he'll give you an answer. And as far as the podcast goes, I think that's where a lot of us, especially the younger generation, are going these days to find out what the hell is going on, because so many of these other national platforms, CNN, NBC, Fox, they're all scripted.
CNN and MSNBC and Fox aren't about the news. What their job is to control the population's opinions, okay? Not facts.
They all have an agenda.
They do have.
And I'm not here to say one is right, one is wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say. We're just having real talk here, and they all have a certain agenda that they're trying to portray and show the people. And that's what they do. And they also have big corporations funding them. So certain things are not really going to be addressed.
Moving on, we're almost done here. Number 3, the Democratic elite and elitism. We see it nationally where there is a elite structure. I mean, Kamala Harris became the vice presidential nominee without a primary, right? That was an elitist act. I mean, you can't, it was elitist. And again, like you say, to have her then be the one to save democracy is just suspect. I mean, it just doesn't sit right.
If this would happen in any other country in the world, we'll be pointing the finger and saying, look at dictatorship, and we'll be calling it out. But most Democrats just took her in like she was the second coming of Obama. But we saw after the elections that she wasn't.
In terms of Democratic elitism, seeing it at the national level is one thing, but wow, talk about seeing it at the local level. Some of the things that are happening right here in our home county with people, the chief of police getting a payout because he might have felt bad that one of the city council said something about him. Not even a lawsuit, but a settlement agreed to. It just makes no sense.
It's wild. I think the chief is a nice guy. He's a stand-up guy. But I no way support this, and no way could I see the reason in this. It's not even a lawsuit yet.
Right.
If there is any issue at all, this should be between the chief and ex-councilman Tariq Bakari, who exchanged some text. It should be against him, not the city council and the taxpayers. It's typical Charlotte.
It's typical Charlotte. I think of Dr. Fauci and all the crap he took. People called him all kinds of names, Dr. Death, all kinds of stuff. He didn't get a payout. That's part of being a public servant. That's part of the role. So in Charlotte, to see our Democratic leaders decide, hey, let's go ahead and even though there's no lawsuit, enter a preemptive settlement agreement with the chief of police just blows my mind. Why didn't they send the chief out for counseling like they would do with other employees? Why didn't they try to have a mediation session between the chief and the city council member who may have said some things that hurt the chief's feelings? I don't know.
It blows my mind. We saw something similar with our last CMS superintendent.
Ernest Winston, he was asked to sit in for a day. Then he was asked to sit in for a little while.
Yeah.
Then they made him the permanent superintendent. Then they gave him a raise, and they gave him a great golden parachute retirement package. And then a few weeks later, they fired him.
And it's nothing against him. Here again,
nothing against him at all.
Here again,
he's a great guy.
Another great guy. Another great guy that gets handed extra taxpayer money for what? For what really was it based on? Just another way that Charlotte officials abuse taxpayer money. It's just so Charlotte.
It's so Charlotte. And here in North Carolina, we hear how awful the General Assembly is because it's a one-party General Assembly, supermajority. But as a county, we have the exact same situation where the legislature will gerrymander the state. Our seated Democrats will gerrymander the county. I mean, everybody knows it's going on and who does it. And we had one school board member gerrymander the current board chair out of her election and got caught red-handed. and they put her back in, but because the school board said, oh no, that's not gerrymandering, it's supposed to go away because all the good old girls got together, the Dash U Democrats, and decided it was okay for her to have gerrymandered because they're her friend, they can make it go away. And, in a democracy, that's not how stuff is supposed to work. We can see it right here at home.
And I think it's important, and I think anyone listening can tell that we're principled people. We're not just going off on Republicans here. Democrats have issues they need to work on, and that's what we're talking about today. You have to be principled, and you can't just point at one party or one politician and say that's everything is his fault. Look at them. Clean up and begins at home.
The truth is, to improve, we've got to change what the Democrats are doing in this town.
If you can't question, if you can't speak out, what kind of group are you in? You're in a cult.
Oh, Chewy's got a little something to say. Well, Chewy's reminding us that we better take a break. So here's a song by
The War is Treaty and John Bon Jovi.
Gina was down the road day, working for a man. She brings home a pay for love, for love. You say we gotta hold on to what we got. Doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We got each other. That's a lot for love. We give it a shot and oh, if we fail, oh, living on a prayer. Take my hand, we'll make it, I swear. Oh, living on a prayer. Through his 6-string high, he's holding it in when he used to make it talk so much. Gina said she's running away. Oh yeah, Tommy said that. Oh, it's okay. They say we gotta hold on to what we got. Doesn't make a difference if we make it or not. We got each other, and that's a lot for love. For love. We give it a shot. Oh, if we fail. Oh, living on a prayer. Take my hand, we'll make it, I swear. Oh, living on a prayer. We're living on a prayer. We gotta hold on, you ready or not. You live for the fight when it's all that you got. hear us saying, oh, we halfway there. Oh, living on a prayer. Take my hand, we'll make it, I swear. This great nation adopted a motto in the year 1782, E pluribus unum, which in Latin translates out of many, one. Those words, they ring very true today. Now, we can move forward together, embracing what makes us different, which is actually what does make America great. And I believe with all of my heart in the next generation. We can move forward with this next generation, but we need them to understand that the American dream is very much alive and well, because we, the people, hold the power to decide our future.
John's words really ring true there. E pluribus unum. Of many comes one. Or, my preferred way of saying this is, we are all one people. We need to try to get back towards being that, because that's where our diversity, yes, is our strength, but we need to be recognized as one people. All right? All right, let's get back. All right, our second to last issue for today is war. Okay? Let's just think about war. There's the Afghanistan situation. It was great that we got out of war. I love that we got out of Afghanistan, but the way we did it left it was just an awful mess, is what it looked like, no matter how you justify it as a party. Second, Gaza. It's ridiculous. Genocide, mass genocide, what's going on. And now we're locking down in the United States. People could be deported or penalized for talking about Israel, which makes no sense. This is the United States of America. Let's not forget Ukraine. We've been at this Ukraine war for years, and where are we going? Where are we going with this war? And I'll say, with all the bad things I have said, and will probably say in the future, Donald Trump he's not afraid to pull the trigger, but he does seem to be adverse to war. What do you think?
I'm a veteran protester of wars, and I protested the war on Afghanistan after 9/11. Before the war on Iraq, which was another unjust war, when it wasn't cool. Let's be clear here. The Taliban never attacked America. So we had no right to go make war and occupy with them. So let's just be clear about that. A lot of people think that Taliban attacked us on 9/11. No, they didn't. The way we pulled out was reminiscent of Vietnam. But, it happens a lot when you do wrong. Sometimes you just get, you kind of pee on yourself. And I think that's what America did, or under the leadership of Biden, when they left Afghanistan. They kind of were peeing on themselves. The Ukraine war. Personally, as one who is principled and not believing that we should attack other countries that haven't attacked us, I don't think we should be there. I don't think the taxpayers should be funding their war. That's their war. That's them, between them and Russia. We should not be. We should be trying to work diplomatically in the world, especially with countries like Russia and China. We shouldn't be trying to be on the edge of World War III. It just doesn't make sense to me. But again, this is a part of the military-industrial complex. There are a lot of military contractors making a lot of money off this war. There's a lot of resources in Ukraine. All of these factors, just like going to Afghanistan, it was more about oil and opium than it was about freedom or looking for any so-called terrorists. So let's just be clear about that too. And Ukraine, don't think that they don't have resources that the United States wants to get their hand on, along with the military contractors making a killing off of it. And then Gaza. Of course, Gaza, there's a genocide in Gaza, and that's a part of the military-industrial complex too. We give Israel billions of dollars every year for them to spend money here to buy military weapons so they can go kill Palestinians, which is wrong. And AIPAC has bought off so many of our politicians that even though the soul of that person would tell you this is wrong, this is a genocide, it's almost like you're watching a science fiction movie, and these politicians are just null and void. They have no heart. And believe me, I will never forgive these politicians. They're allowing this genocide now when babies are being blown apart, burned alive. It's sickening. It makes me sick. It's no justification in what's going on in Gaza right now. It's been flattened.
Sadly, I think the justification is not something we hear on the news. Sadly, I think the justification is the funding of military bases in people's states, the building of submarines in certain states, the funding of all kinds of military projects around this country are voted on by Congress people.
This is it's a war economy.
It's a war economy is where I'm going.
All the money that we're spending, whether it's in Israel, Ukraine, around the world, funding people's military and war and killing, we could be funding living here in the United States, whether it's through
thank you for that.
Better medical care, better education. We could be. There's no reason that we should have the poverty level, the homeless level.
There's
that we
a
have
significant
in this
portion.
We have the money here.
We have it right here. There's a significant portion of our gross domestic product is the war economy. It is all about who's making what, who's bombing who, where the money's going. It's massive. And no reporters are reporting on it. No one's going deep inside to find out where all this stuff is going. Doge isn't doing it.
No. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like anti-military. I have a camouflage jacket on, of course. Nothing wrong with having a strong military to defend your own borders. That makes sense. But you're not defending our borders when you're over in Ukraine, when you're halfway around the world, when you're occupying these countries, or when you're funding their wars. That has nothing to do with us. And what you might end up doing is upsetting some people that you're messing with now to come see us and invade our borders and hurt us based on what we're doing over there. Nobody hates us for our freedom. That's the biggest lie that you often hear. They might hate us because you have something to do with their freedom.
Foreign policy, foreign policy.
And what we have to understand as Americans, that our freedom and other people's freedom does not have to look the same, unless you're talking about fascism. People have the right to their own perception, their own ideas of what they call freedom. Their freedom might look different than ours, but we don't need to push our way of life on other people.
War.
What is it good for?
So last one up for this program is hiding Biden. The idea that President Biden was allowed to get as close as he did to the election just blows me away. His wife, his inner circle, the press, there were people who knew about this for quite some time. And the way they did this, to put him out on the debate floor as a sacrificial lamb, they knew what his performance was going to be. That was no secret to the inside people. They knew what was coming. And they knew, and Kamala knew what was coming. unfortunately for her, she was the patsy who had to take the fall.
She knew that if she waited patiently, she would be the one that Democrats.
Maybe the reason they waited too late was because it was so that Kamala would have the advantage in securing the seat without a primary.
Well, they waited too late because they wanted to take democracy away. Instead of fighting for democracy, they actually fought against it. So they co-opt.
We're not supposed to talk about stuff like this now.
Well, we have to. I mean, even the term hiding Biden, it makes me seem like I'm doing something nasty. Hiding Biden. I mean, what are we doing here? Hiding Biden.
Right.
I don't know if I want to be a part of that or not. That sounds like something they might do at a P. Diddy party.
Right. There you go.
I'm not down with
There might be more to this story. Hiding Biden is one part of it, but another part of it is the loss of integrity that was shown to the world. President Biden promised everybody during the campaign he wasn't going to pardon his son.
Yeah.
Okay. He said he believed in the judicial system of the United States and would not pardon his son. Well, to the minute when he found out he wasn't going to have the ability to pardon him or have him pardoned, he went ahead and pardoned him. It's not the pardon that bothers me. It doesn't at all.
It's the lie.
It's the lie from the White House. And it wasn't just Biden's campaign staff lying. It was professional White House communication people on White House letterhead issuing that statement by the President of the United States, whether it was Biden or anyone else. Out of respect for the office, I feel that the office has been disrespected more than it was by Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton.
Yeah.
The lie is what did it. Bill Clinton, you could argue, was being a Southern gentleman saying he didn't have sex. But in this case, Joe Biden wasn't being a gentleman. He was using the office for his own purposes, and he shouldn't have lied. He should have just pardoned him without the lie. What was the purpose of the lie? It had nothing to do with the pardon. The purpose of the lie was to get votes, giving the appearance of integrity and belief in our judicial system, which he put in writing then he didn't believe.
But Biden has made a career of this. Him and his son has benefited from his political position for years. And that's another thing that Democrats do not want to be honest and talk about. You talk about the Trump family and how they're making money and they're benefiting from Trump. Yes, they are. Like I said, he's criminal-minded, but so is Biden.
The narratives put out by the corporate media, left versus right, Republican versus Democrat, the whole battle is just for their profit. Keeping people on the edge of their chairs. Certain journalists, journalist isn't the right word, certain commentators, right? We're not getting the news. We're not getting journalism. We're getting commentary. And they'll just keep you on the edge of your seat and make your blood boil every single night until you're like addicted to it and you got to have it. I'll tell you what, the best thing I did before the election the last few weeks was just turn off all the mass media stuff. I went to private sources for my news. I'll share another time, but I turned off all the big networks because their narratives are so obviously pushing an agenda. They're not educating us. They're, as you said, indoctrinating us to a particular point of view, and that's their job today. And that's why I think podcasts are such a great thing, because whether you like Joe Rogan or not, I personally like his interview style. I turn it off when I don't like the people. Okay, I might turn it off 80% of the time. But when I watch it, I enjoy the show. I don't know if I'd get in the ring with him. But anyway.
Yeah. The KRS-One has a line in one of his raps. He says, if black and white didn't argue the most, they would see that the government is screwing them both. Mm-mm. And that's what you're getting from these two, the different national airways, MSNBC, Fox. They want to have us arguing amongst ourselves on smaller emotional issues sometimes, but not really thinking critically and working towards greater issues that would benefit most of us as Americans.
Exactly. Yeah, and Fox News was the target for years of being blamed for doing that kind of stuff, but it's the same across all corporate media. MSNBC has agendas. MSNBC, as anyone, is as skewed, and they earn their money doing what they're doing, and that's what it's all about. It's all about the money. But somebody recently was quoted as saying that Biden and his leadership team were in a fog of delusion and denial. And to me, that is so illustrative of what was really going on. I mean, Joe wasn't clear on what was going on from moment to moment. His leadership team were obviously thinking of themselves, right, and prolonging their power. And then you bring in Kamala, who was simply not ready. I don't know, as a candidate, she might be a great person. I don't know. I'd love to invite Kamala here and to talk amongst friends about what happened and stuff. I think in closing this part of the show, in conclusion, Democrats have a lot of work to do. Democrats need to learn how to communicate. They need to find their integrity again. They need to start coalition building, and don't do what they did to the Teamsters. Don't point your finger at the Teamsters and tell them they better get on board. That's not how labor works. No.
I'm glad you brought up labor, because they did the Muslims the same way. They did the Muslims and the Palestinians the same way. They had that long DNC. What was it, like 4 days, 8 hours a day or whatever? They would not let any Palestinian speak about what's going on in Gaza or what's important to us as Muslims, as Palestinians. And they've done it all along. It's like they have a big tent, and they want your vote, but they want you to come in, shut up, and sit down. They do not want to hear your concerns.
Well, just like the primary, they told us who we were going to vote for.
Yeah.
Now they're also wanting to tell us what our issues are.
Not only are they trying to take the vote away from you, tell you who you're going to vote for, they're going to tell you what the issues are.
That's exactly right.
You have no input. And if you treat people like that, they're either going to go elsewhere or they're not going to vote at all, which is the important point we need to make here, is why the Dems lost. It was because they had a very poor candidate that was very unpopular, and they could not do enough to bring people out of their homes to vote. It wasn't the third party people. It wasn't the Trump people. It was the people that they could not motivate to go say, I'm going to vote for this person because I know this person is strong. This person is going to be good for America. This person is going to help me.
It's worse than that, Jabril.
Yeah.
Not only did they not inspire people to come out, but their behaviors forced people to stay home.
Yeah, it's
All
the
right?
people that would rather stay home. They would rather stay home and let Trump win.
Yes.
Than support a very poor candidate that you threw in my face and
Right.
didn't even ask me who I wanted.
That's right. That's right.
You treat people like that, then it's going to blow back.
Okay. In conclusion, it's really up to you to voice your voice, make your voice heard. What are your issues? Are you one of the folks who think that Washington should tell you what your issues are? Or should Washington be responding to the issues that are important to you? We feel that for democracy to persist, to show its tenacious nature, we need everybody to speak up. Y'all need to voice your opinions. You all need to know what you want done in America. Okay. Let's let Anne E. DeChant wrap us up with her wonderful song, Out There. All right, folks, get out there.
People thought they were off their rockers. They'd never get that airplane off the ground. Till one morning out in Kitty Hawk in that Carolina sky, she flew 12 seconds before she came back down. Then people thought the sky was the limit, that going to the moon could not be done. But when the Eagle landed, that brave space cowboy took one small step and proved everybody wrong. Out there, dancing on a wire, out there, running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall, they live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. A seamstress from Montgomery, Alabama, stayed seated on a bus and took a stand. That brazen little move caused a revolution. She broke every boundary when she wouldn't budge an inch. So if you think that you won't make a difference, that what you're trying to prove is too bizarre, remember it's the dreamers, the do-or-die believers that march right into history just being who they are. Out there dancing on a wire, out there running through the fire. They ain't afraid to fall, they live to risk it all. If you're gonna do a lot, then you gotta be a little out there. Oh, out there, busting down the fences, out there, damn the consequences. Let's live to risk it all, and don't be afraid to fall. If we're gonna do